What is going on, YouTube? Fred here, and welcome to The Dimension. And today we are starting something new here on the channel called Fred Recommends, where I give my personal recommendations on entertainment, tech, and other things that I've personally used and have enjoyed. Today on Fred Recommends, we are going to be looking at my personal favorite book series of all time, The Inheritance Cycle. Well, now, any self-respecting book lover that I know personally would look at me and go, "Really, Fred? That's your favorite book series?" And I will say right off the bat, it is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. There are parts where I've rolled my eyes and sometimes downright cringe, but that is what reviewing is for. And in this video, we are going to be looking at what I did like about the books, what I didn't like, and is there any future in this book series moving forward? Let's start off with what I did like about the books. The first thing that jumps to mind is the world. Though it may seem like Paolini just rearranged the map of Middle-earth, in reality, the backdrop for this four-book epic fantasy was inspired by Paolini's home state of Montana. And while the land is very inspiring to read about, the distinct races are just as interesting. There are four major ones: men, elves, dwarves, and Urgles. For those of you who don't know what an Urgle is, it is a creature that is similar to orcs in culture in Lord of the Rings, yet have a horned appearance. And while the world and cultures of the four races are incredibly interesting to read about, the book series really shines in how they present the dragon riders. In a nutshell, they have magic swords, ride dragons, obviously, and can use magic. This alone was described early on in the first book by a friend of the protagonist, Aragon, a village storyteller named Brom, who turns out to be more than what he seems. And that description of the riders alone is what solidified my interest in the books, and is what I now call my personal triforce of epic fantasy: dragons, swords, and magic, and has inspired me to write my own tale while trying to feature this trinity. But now let's move on to what I didn't like about the story. One, it was about as formulaic and predictable as the Transformers movies. Seriously, if you want to see how formulaic those things are, just look up what Nostalgia Critic has to say about them. You won't be disappointed. But anyway, the plot seems to be ripped clean out of Star Wars, with some plot twist altercations and the Force replaced with dragons. And while there are some interesting characters, a lot of them are pretty bland. But after being out for over a decade, is there any future for these books? Well, Paolini himself is writing a fifth book set in Alagacia, and says that he has plotted it out, but hasn't gotten around to writing it yet. Hopefully his writing has improved, and we will get to see more dragon riders and much more. But outside of books, Paolini has admitted on his website that there are those interested in a redo of the Eragon movie. Perhaps the entire cycle, but it is unlikely to be for a while. In the meantime, I actually see potential for video games set in Alagacia. The potential for this has been proven by the Witcher franchise, whose books were published in Poland in the 1980s, and the world in those books got a revival through the insanely popular video games done by Redfly Studios. There was enough interest to create Alagacia in Skyrim, though I do not know if that mod is still being supported or even updated, but to me it was kind of lackluster in my honest opinion. And other great potential games has for Alagacia is in the mobile sector. Now, I'm not saying mobile games are not without their problems, but I do have an idea for how that kind of game would operate, but if I said it here, it would be going into spoiler territory. So, in conclusion for The Inheritance Cycle, it is a fantasy story that while formulaic, produced a lot of cool ideas. So that'll be it for this first episode of Fred Recommends. If you've read The Inheritance Cycle, let me know what you think of it down in the comments below. Oh, and if you want to read it for yourself, there's an affiliate link down below where you can also support the channel in the process. If you're new around here, click subscribe and ring the notification bell so you don't miss another video. Oh, be sure to like and consider checking out my Patreon page. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you on the trail of adventure.